So the first one is to enlist their help. This is basically if you have your natural role of gatekeepers in their stance of blocking you out, you're in your stance as salesperson trying to get in. Let's sort of try to shift that a bit and try to change our stance as someone that needs help. And by doing that, hopefully we get them to alter their stance of blocking us out, and maybe in some cases get them to be a little bit more helpful. And so it starts with presenting yourself as, by saying stuff like, hey, maybe I'm kind of lost here. Maybe you can help point me in the right direction. I'm trying to reach the IT director, and I don't have the name. The name I have here is old from a few years ago, and I know you guys have changed. Can you point me in the right direction? That's more of a asking for their help, enlisting their help, a softer approach than saying, yes, I'm trying to reach the IT director. Which the second version there just sounds more firm, more salesy. So, asking for their advice in terms of who to talk to, how to work with the organization. This is probably one of the better tactics to do. Out of the gate, you might reach a gatekeeper and you start very direct, which is to say, I'm trying to reach someone. You either say a name or a title, and you see if they pass you on. But then you notice a little resistance, and the gatekeeper starts being a bit difficult. Start to treat the gatekeeper like the prospect that you're trying to reach. And you can even start that out with by, you try your direct approach and they block you out. And then you can actually say something like this. Okay, well, you know what, Mark, let me take a step back and actually tell you who I am and why I'm calling. That's a great way to kind of begin this effort to treat them like a prospect. And then what you can do is you can redirect to your elevator pitch, which educates them on why you're calling. Hopefully maybe you have a strong elevator pitch that communicates how you help, which might help them to let you in. Or you can also ask them some of your pre-qualifying questions that you might have prepared for your prospect. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So the gatekeeper begins to block you out. Now, what you see here on the screen is actually part of a script that's produced by SalesScripter. So if you were a SalesScripter user, this is one of the tools that you would get. And this script uses your value statement as sort of the elevator pitch at the beginning of a call. Now, this part of the script is designed for the target prospect, but I'm not able to get to that prospect, so I'm saying something like, hey, let me take a step back and let me tell you who I am and why I'm trying to reach Mrs. Thomas. The reason why I'm calling is we actually help sales managers to shorten the amount of time that it takes for them to train their new salespeople. So that's why I'm calling. I'm not sure if we're a good fit for you, so let me pause there. So I just delivered that my value proposition, my elevator pitch, and I'm communicating to the gatekeeper why it would make sense for me to talk to Mrs. Thomas. So I can stop there, stop treating them like a prospect, and see what the gatekeeper says. Or I could continue on if they're still not letting me in. And here are my pre-qualifying questions that I've prepared for the sales manager that I'm trying to reach. And if they're still not going to let me in, I can just ask them my pre-qualifying questions. Now, there's something real powerful in asking your pre-qualifying questions to the gatekeeper. Either one, they're going to give you some answers, which, hey, that's great. If I can get some valuable information out of the gatekeeper, that works. Or that's not going to be the end all, but that's good. And what's really ideal, and I learned this from a sales manager about 10 years ago, and he said one of the best ways to get around a gatekeeper is to ask them a question that they don't know the answer to. And I thought that was really powerful. What was missing in that advice is that he did not really teach me how to ask good questions or what questions to ask that they wouldn't know the answer to. Well, that's something that actually SalesScripter will help you with, is that we're going to take you through a process that guides you to developing the optimum list of pre-qualifying questions for each buyer persona that you sell to. So you'll have that if you used SalesScripter, and that's what I have here. So here's some probing questions. Now, okay, like I said, either the gatekeeper is going to give me some valuable info or they're not going to know. Let's say they don't know. if I ask them one of these questions, then that's a great opportunity for me to say, well, yes, well, see, that's one of the reasons why I'm reaching out. And I know that Mrs. Thomas would have that info, and that's why I want to talk to her. So what's the best way for me to get through to have that conversation with her? So that's how you treat the gatekeeper like a prospect. Another really powerful tactic is name dropping. So there's a concept called social proof, which I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but social proof basically means, picture yourself being at a party, and everybody is complete strangers. Nobody knows each other. But there's one person, or we don't know who knows who, let's just say. There's one person that's not talking to anybody, and there's one person that is talking, you've observed that they've talked to 10 people. Well, that person that talks to 10 people, you probably you see them more as an insider, and you see the person that isn't talking to anybody as an outsider. That may or may not be the case, but the person that's talking to everybody has more social proof. And why I'm going through this is that a gatekeeper, one of the ways that they try to determine whether to screen you or let you in is they want to determine, are you an outsider or an insider? Because see, they really don't want to screen out people that they shouldn't. So they're walking this fine line, and they don't want to let people in that they shouldn't also. So an insider would maybe be an employee, but it could also be a vendor that's already doing business with the company, or someone that is not a salesperson trying to sell something. And that's what an outsider. An outsider typically is a salesperson trying to get their way in. So even knowing you are an outsider and you are a salesperson, you could create this image that you are an insider by name dropping. So you could say something like, you have the gatekeeper. Oh yeah, I spoke with Tom White in accounting, and now I'm trying to reach someone in HR, maybe an HR director. Can you point me in the right direction? So you've name dropped and created that social proof. You might say, well, what if I haven't spoken to someone? Here's a little trick, and you could say it's unethical, but I don't think there's anything misleading about this, especially even if you mean what you're saying here. But the second bullet point here is, if you haven't spoken to Tom White, you could say something like this. I'm actually planning on meeting with Tom White in the upcoming weeks in accounting, but before I do that, I want to talk to someone in HR. Can you point me in the right direction? So we just name dropped, and hopefully if you use that type of name drop, you actually do have intentions of talking to Tom White, but you might never have talked to him. You plan on calling him after you talk to HR. So I'll let you decide if you're comfortable with that. But you can also name drop external clients as well. This one is a bit of a stretch, but hey, I'll give you everything I got. You could mention an initiative to try to sound more like an insider. Well, you could do some research on a company, and you might find an article that says they have a project to improve their cost control. Well, you could call the gatekeeper, unless you're trying to reach operations or something, and you could say, "Yeah, I'm calling I'm calling Mark Thomas, and I'm calling to talk to him about the cost control project. Can you point me in the right direction?" So that's just a way to also display that you're an insider, or make you look like an insider. The next tactic we touched on a little bit, but it's to ask probing questions. We kind of got into this one when we were talking about treating the gatekeeper like a prospect, and we mentioned asking your pre-qualifying questions. So your probing questions, these can be great tactics for you to use at all different stages when you're dealing with gatekeepers, and these are your pre-qualifying questions. But they do a couple valuable things. I've already touched on this a little bit, but they'll allow you to extract valuable information. One thing that asking pre-qualifying questions to your gatekeeper does is it also shows them a tremendous amount of respect. I mean, if you have this sophisticated question that you prepared for an executive, and you're asking the gatekeeper what if they have the answer to that, either you're going to get the information, or you're going to compliment them by thinking that they have that information. Here are some examples of pre-qualifying questions that you could ask. And again, these are actually questions that are in my account of SalesScripter for a SalesScripter script. You could try to befriend the gatekeeper. I think this is the tactic that most salespeople, this is like the only one that they use. I'll give you some advice on how to do this tactic that might be a little different than what you've tried in the past or what anybody may have taught you. Which, of course, you could try to catch the gatekeeper's name, especially if it's someone that you're going to make multiple passes on. That way when you call back, you can use their name and establish rapport. This is important. Remember your adversaries. And so you don't want to get into this sort of standoff where they're blocking and they're mad and you're frustrated and you're mad, and you can both hear it in each other's tone. So even though you might hear it and sense it from them, you can change the vibe you're giving off by, well, for one, you can try to smile while you're talking on the phone. That's not a bad thing to do at any point when you're talking on the phone and doing prospecting, but especially if you're dealing with a difficult gatekeeper. I have here to laugh, and that's kind of hard to explain when to do and how to do it, but I'm a firm believer in sort of self-amusement in awkward situations. So like if I'm walking down the street and I trip on a crack in the concrete, instead of acting like continuing to walk and act like it didn't happen and hope that nobody saw it, I'm going to like laugh at myself, because we're all human and we end up in difficult situations, and we're all just trying to make it. So sometimes if the gatekeeper is being really difficult and you're at this gridlock, sometimes just sort of laugh about it, and what you could do is you can laugh as part of the next recommendation here, which is to share that you understand. Remember that I talked about understand in order to be understood. So understanding what is going on with the gatekeeper and understanding the different types of gatekeepers is half of the process. The other half is letting them know that you understand them. So this, you can apply this to when you're in a disagreement with someone or dealing with your children or a spouse, but actually letting them know that you understand. So the way that this would work with a gatekeeper, let's say that you're sort of at a standoff, and you could actually tell them that you understand. You could say something like this. You could say, hey, you know what, Renee? Listen, I know that you are instructed to keep me out, to keep people like me out, and you think that I'm a salesperson that's going to bug your boss, and you might even get in trouble, I'm guessing, if you let me in. So, but it is my job to meet with your boss. So, and what you say after that could be different things, but you could share your value proposition, share your elevator pitch, treat them like a prospect. But the key thing that I want to just point out here is it's really powerful to let them know that you understand, that you know what they're doing, you know why they're being difficult, and so something to test out there. Dealing with the automated phone tree, try to get to a human as possible. Press 0 for the operator. Sometimes you can guess an extension just to get to a person and then ask them. Say you're trying to reach the person you're trying to reach, see if they can do a live transfer. Here's something that is a real good takeaway for you: is try to avoid the gatekeeper altogether. The thing is that if you do your whole day of phone prospecting, you can't really do this, because what we're talking about is calling early in the morning, at lunch, and after 5, where a lot of the gatekeeper types that I talked about are gone. So front desk receptionist is gone, executive assistants might be gone. So these are some times where you might get somebody an executive to answer their own phone. Another way to avoid gatekeepers is sort of taking a first pass that leads to a gatekeeper and doing something to where your second and third passes can avoid dealing with a gatekeeper, and that is to get the direct line for your target prospect. So sometimes you can have the gatekeeper on the phone and you might say something like, yeah, I'm trying to connect with Mark Thomas. Oh, and by the way, I think I have his number wrong. I'm not sure. And you give them the phone number. What you could do is you could say like the first 6 numbers of the company phone, which is probably the same for all employees, and then just give them a mix of 4 numbers at the end, and then say, is that correct? And then what they'll do is they'll pull that up, and they'll notice that you gave them the wrong number. Depending on how you deliver that and what time of the day and who you caught, they might correct you and say, oh no, you got the wrong number. The right number is this, and that way you've got the direct line, and you don't have to deal with that gatekeeper again when you call that prospect. An important thing here is to not take it personally. So I mentioned to you, like, it drives me crazy when someone says we're not interested. When I get that from a gatekeeper, or if a gatekeeper's mean, it can really just get under your skin, make you frustrated. But the thing is, I mean, I guess if you've signed up to attend this webinar, you maybe can relate to this, that it can really ruin your day when a gatekeeper is ugly to you. It can make you frustrated and put you in a bad mood. But the important thing is to not take it personally, and that, again, the gatekeeper is not that they don't like you and that they think you're a bad person or you're doing a bad job or you're a bad salesperson. They're just doing their job. And if anything, if they're rejecting you, the rejection is to your company and it's not to you personally. And so just keep that in mind and don't let it affect how you think.